All right, I'm just fresh from the gym, so please don't judge if I'm like extra oily or crusty on the face. Let me look. I haven't shaved in a while. I'm in goblin mode, y'all, because we got videos coming soon. But it's all made better because I think I found my new album of the year. I could be overreacting. I'm racking my brain just to make sure, but I don't know if there's ever been anything like what's happening with Chance the Rapper right now and like the history of hip hop. Over this past weekend, this is August 19th, I guess, Chance the Rapper released Starline, technically only his second major studio album, with his first being the much maligned Big Day back in 2019. And 7 years after that, and a lot of stuff in between, which I'll talk about, here we have Starline, which is probably my new favorite album of the year. A year that has brought some great stuff. Jid just came out 2 weeks ago. The Clips album is critically acclaimed, everybody loves, and it's very, very good. Came out a couple weeks before that. One of my new faves that I found this year is McKinley Dixon with Magic Alive, which I've talked about a couple of times. And a bunch of other stuff I haven't listened to because I don't be having time. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But for me, Starline, while it may not be everyone's favorite album, I get it if you just think it's cool or just pretty good. For me, for my ears, for my disposition, for my background, this is not just my favorite album of the year, it's probably my favorite album in several years, right? And even if you don't think the album is a new classic the way I think it is, it's clear that the streets are definitely looking at this as a huge comeback for a rapper who, let's be honest, was left for dead by the rap game over the last few years. If you're younger or you haven't been paying attention, it may be hard to imagine right now, but for a moment, Chance the Rapper was the next big thing, or really just the big thing in hip hop. Like at the time when the concept of the big three was forming, I'd argue that he was up there with what we call the big three right now. Like he probably would have taken J. Cole's spot, if not Drake or Kendrick's spot at the same time. And he did this completely independent without a label, but was still able to penetrate the mainstream music zeitgeist. He had heavy radio play nationwide. He went on a worldwide tour that grossed over $30 million. And he had ton of love and goodwill in the culture because he had this infectious joy in his music that contrasted with the prevailing tone of hip hop at the time, but didn't come off preachy or obnoxious. In fact, on plenty of occasions, Chance was able to relay the same bravado-laced messages, but with a joyful spirit. Chance was legit the biggest thing in hip hop, I don't know, between like 2014 and 2018, up until the release of his first official album, The Big Day, and that kind of changed everything.
I am genuinely feeling like a strong 0 on this record.
Falloffs come in all types of forms. Like, for instance, more people know Nori as a podcaster now and don't realize that with Capone, as Capone and Noriega, they had one of the best New York gangster rap albums of all time in the mid-90s, or that after that album, when Capone went to jail for a few years, Nor released a solo album that was also critically acclaimed. However, he said himself that he was never that interested in rapping, which showed because his second solo album, Doo-Doo Water, and he mostly didn't do anything since then except for a reunion album with Capone, but that came years later and nothing since then. In the opposite situation, Nas started out as probably the most critically acclaimed rapper that the culture had ever seen for a while, with his first album, Illmatic, being a paradigm-shifting moment in hip-hop and probably still the greatest rap album of all time. For Nas, it wasn't so much of a fall-off as it was just an inability to reach that same peak again for years, along with some clear difficulties in understanding how to make hits or even just pick beats. Babilla, you know what to put right here. Go ahead and do that for me. And you can hear this farty ass beat.
When it comes to sex advice, I'm the one to call if you're a virgin with blue balls or you tear down walls, not Dr. Wu.
What is this beat? Then you have someone like DaBaby, who, if you ask me, should never have been big. Like, I never felt like people were really checking for DaBaby like that. He definitely had a few hits, but even then they felt inflated in their presence. Maybe it was because I was, you know, too old for them at the time or too old for them now. But when's the last time you listened to Suge? Was Suge really a hit like that? Regardless, DaBaby was everywhere for years. He was a sex symbol for reasons I get into in my Black Man Sexuality video, which I'll just say weren't the best reasons. He also had a ton of antics, getting into fights all the time and other nonsense. But when he had a few uglier moments, saying some homophobic stuff at a concert,
Fellas,
Lights up.
fellas, if you ain't sucking niggas dick in the parking lot, put your cell phone lights in
Let's
the
be
hell.
real about this shit.
And having a public, very toxic relationship with one of his numerous baby mamas, the culture felt like his music wasn't adding up to his antics, and he's pretty much gone now. For a bit of deep lore, let me introduce those of you under the age of 40 to Special Ed. Yes, that was his real rap name. Fuck y'all, the 90s was great. I'm not cringe, y'all are cringe. Special Ed's song, I Got It Made, was so fucking iconic for that era. Look at us. Look how much fucking fun we're having. This was a moment. Y'all young niggas ain't got shit like this. Well, you probably do, but I don't know, our shit was better anyway. And it's not like the world was so much better back then. We were at the tail end of the crack era right now. South Africa was still an apartheid state, and we were 4 years away from the crime bill. Shit wasn't sweet. We just felt better about it. And this song was everywhere. It was the Not Like Us of 1990, I promise. Ed's first album went gold, and then he had a second big hit with The Mission, and then like nothing for 4 or 5 years. He popped back up in 1995 with the song ironically titled Never Go Back, in which he rapped about how he would never fall off. And then of course he immediately fell off and was mostly never relevant again. With Chance though, I don't know, it really doesn't make a ton of sense, but I have some personal theories that it was a combination of things. I think the biggest factor is that Chance had a combination of features that made him a target in the industry. For one, he did not fit the expected, desired, highly marketable image of the black male rap star, even at the time, even in an era post Kanye West, because Kanye was a huge star. Chance rejected that overt image of thug and black dysfunction in his music. Like Kanye was always clamoring for white attention, something that is even more obvious now. Chance was mostly just being himself and wasn't really into all of the opulent, like gaudy stuff that Kanye was doing. Yet he somehow still embodied a lot of elements of traditional black masculinity without it feeling forced or disingenuous. One of his biggest hits, No Problem, is literally an open threat to the music industry, featuring Lil Wayne and 2 Chainz. But it sounds like a black church choir rehearsal. It's something really unique to him for the most part. On top of that, Chance wasn't overtly misogynistic, was very public about his marriage and his desire to be normal. And this is just not how people want their black male superstar rappers. They don't want us to be normal. And that made him a target, not just by the industry, but if you're gonna keep it real, by cynical, shitty hip hop fans, male and female alike. So that whenever Chance did have a bad moment in the press, people were quick to be like, see, Chance ain't shit either. And was looking to dogpile on him. And if I put my conspiracy hat on, I'd argue that even that probably wasn't organic, but was probably something being done by the industry at large. Remember, this is that time period before streaming really took off, where the industry was really struggling to lose money, and having the biggest rapper in the world be completely independent wasn't gonna ride with them. And so suddenly the same things that made Chance unique and beloved, his off-kilter flow, his one-of-a-kind ad-libs, and his public persona, those became mocked, and he became kind of a lolcow for a couple of years.
Oh, I love my wife. I love my wife. Let's go ride a bike with my wife.
And then after his divorce, and I hate to say this, a lot of fans immediately wondered if the pain of that experience would send him back to the booth with a vengeance. And I don't think it's that simple, nor do I want to undermine how hard divorce can be on people, especially black men. But I can't lie that when he did start dropping music not long after his divorce, it was clear that he had found whatever was missing those previous years. And pretty much a year later, here we are with Starline. And I'm trying not to oversell how inspirational and dope I think this is, because while people like Nas or Lupe Fiasco both have had late career resurgences, they also did that late in their careers, meaning they had a chunk of time at the beginning of their career to build up momentum and capture a diehard element of their audience. And then by the time they made their comeback, they had kind of aged out of mainstream cultural relevance and was mostly just recapturing that same audience that they had years before. On the flip side, Chance is still very young. He's only 32, a few years older than Playboi Carti and actually younger than Jid. He didn't have time to build a legacy of diehard fans to hold him down through the last couple of years of his down era like a Nas or a Lupe. Chance is literally recapturing a space that was vacated by him, and he's having to fight off other artists within his generation also in his prime. Like when Nas was making these classic albums coming out of COVID, he wasn't also dealing with more albums from Jay-Z or Method Man or DMX or anybody that was relevant in his era. Meanwhile, Chance is dropping only a few weeks after Jid dropped an album, only a few weeks before that, Tyler, the Creator. We're still listening to GNX by Kendrick. Joey Badass and J. Cole will probably drop albums by the end of the year. So he's literally having to fight for his life against both his contemporaries, people before him, and new folks like Yeet, right? Y'all are still trying to make Yeet happen. I'm not saying Yeet is bad, I just don't get it, but I know he's very relevant right now, and there's people that probably are listening both to Chance the Rapper and Yeet. Shout out to those people. But those same things that I think hurt Chance the Rapper also made it possible for this comeback. Because he's independent, he had the freedom to make what is actually quietly a really radical album. Like the subject matter of the album, again, manages to say some real shit, but not have it sound preachy. Even this name, Starline, is in reference to the Black Star shipping company from one Marcus Garvey. And I just generally find the whole thing inspirational and dope, and considering how much other negative, toxic stuff is happening in hip hop culture, I think it's really good to champion this moment as something dope for the culture, for the art form of hip hop. Making art as a black artist in general is a precarious thing, and it's even more volatile when you're on your own and not being backed by a machine. And while you can't bottle what Chance is doing and what he did with this album, it's inspirational to black artists out there in terms of what's possible even when the odds are against you. So salute to Chance for this one. If you can't tell by some of the video subject matter or these gray hairs multiplying on my face, I am old. But I'm not that old. I'm an old millennial, believe it or not. No, I'm not Gen X. I'm only in my early 40s, which means I'm not a boomer. And like Gen Xers are really in their like 60s at this point, and boomers are mostly dead by now. Either way though, today's video is sponsored by a documentary that can help you understand this, Boomers, which you can only see on my streaming service, Nebula. I don't have to tell you that things in this country and around the world kind of fucked up right now. And I won't say that it's all the fault of boomers, but that they have a very specific role in how messed up things are. And the documentary Boomers by Tom Nicholas takes a critical look at their role and why it's so significant in its impact on a variety of things happening in our society right now. Boomers is an example of how my streaming service Nebula has changed over the years. Before, Nebula was a place where a lot of YouTubers could put their content without worrying about the nonsense that we deal with here on YouTube. And don't get me wrong, that's still the case. You can still get all of my content along with stuff I and others have never posted on YouTube, commercial free on Nebula. But you're also getting a lot more independent content there as well these days. Docuseries, reality shows, travel shows, even narrative podcasts, along with stuff I can't talk about and stuff that I can talk about, like my own short form documentary on whiteness. You get access to all of this countless hours of exclusive content by signing up for Nebula. And in doing so, you're helping one of the only independent streaming services not owned by some mega corporation or conglomerate that's willing to host the type of content that we really need in the world right now. Because we are creator owned, we come to you directly for your support. So help out, click the link in the description or look for the QR code on the screen to sign up for Nebula today. Thank you to Nebula for sponsoring the video. Thank you for watching this far. I'm FD Signifier, and this has been Light Work.